Hello, everyone! Welcome to the latest episode of Two Wizards and a Mic, where a couple of old guys, that's us, talk about D&D, and hopefully everything we say are just absolute gold nuggets that you can take to your table and have the greatest game ever in your dining room. So, but today, we're talking about something really important. Monsters. I'm Shane.
And I'm Andrew.
Monsters are important, right? I just figured they were, you know? It must be Wednesday. So, today, I noticed there's a book behind you. What is that book? And before you talk about it, what kind of Kickstarter things are you also thinking about today?
Well, Shane, let me tell you. What I'm thinking about is our newest Kickstarter, which is live, and we'll put the link below. If you'd like an adventure for $10 US for the PDF, around $20 for the soft cover, we have something for you. We have our second adventure book, The Fall of Rivenhelm, which has 19 more days to fund. And it
That's
is
right.
66.98% funded.
Isn't that cool?
I think
I'm
we I think
actually...
we have to always make our budget 10,000 Canadian because the percent is so easy to figure out.
Well, I'm actually kind of happy that it is, because it's been a week since I've looked at it,
Mm-hmm.
and I did notice that there were some updates about you, or with you putting, we're at blah 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 percentage, we're at blah 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 percentage, and I saw the latest update this morning, which I think it was the 55, or was it 50? It was this one, yeah, 50% funded, and I saw that
Mm-hmm.
this morning, and now I'm trying to figure out that whole thing with Kickstarters where, I've talked about this many times, but it seems like I was expecting it to get to like 9,800 and then the last week would just suddenly go. However,
Right.
the fact that it's so funded at this point gives me hope for some, gives me hope for hitting all of the stretch goals.
Yeah, hopefully we have a lot of time, almost 3 weeks, and we have about I think we have at least 150 people on the waiting list who are following the project, but they haven't pledged yet. And that's more people
Right.
in the project. So, yeah, if more people get on board, we can fund it and then we can do stretch goals. Definitely will the stretch goals will include more maps and art, but we have some other cool um, surprises, but we're only going to unlock what those are once we fund it. And we're not that far away. We're less than 4,000 Canadian, which is about 2,500 US, I think. Yeah, it's in pretty good shape. There's updates, as you said. It's quite a big adventure book. It's 72 pages. You get a lot of bonuses. You get really, it's for any RPG. If you're a 5e player, you get extra monsters, but there's also conversion tables for other systems for those
Right.
tables. And most of the book is not mechanics, so very usable. Um, yeah, and there's magic items and spells and encounter tables and yeah, and I think we have a cool story. I always have at least one fairly large twist in my stories. Um, the first book, I put it in as an option, the first adventure. That adventure book is going to probably go on sale in January to the public. The
Cool.
Kickstarter backers already have the PDF. And actually, today we sent the files to the printing house. So if we get the proof back for that first adventure book before the printing deadline, there's a holiday printing deadline, we
Right.
might be able to get a few books out for that one to our backers. And yeah,
That would be
this is the
very
second.
cool.
Yeah, and this is the second one of the adventures. We're hoping to do quite a few of them, so it'd be nice to see what kind of support there is.
What is your hope for? Okay, there's four stretch goals. Is
At
there
least,
hope for another? Like, is that what's going to happen? Like, if we actually hit four, all four, Like, are we talking like 5, 6, 7, or like you've already planned these out?
Well, I have at least five in mind. We put four possibilities there. We didn't say what they were. Um,
Yeah.
but we have a lot of ideas. And I really think they're pretty exciting. They're going to give a lot of bonus content. And we always give extra content. People who know our books, who've bought the Monster series, the Kickstarter backers who've looked at the world of Mir, we always give extras. We don't just give you the basic book.
Yeah, yeah, totally. What about the next adventure? What have you already started planning that out?
I've already started writing it.
Excellent.
Totally different. So these two adventures, we're going to reach peak shroom, as I call it. We're going to explore the underworld and mushrooms and mushroom people um, to the fullest, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And then in the new adventure, we're going to do something quite different. I can say that it's going to have an undead theme, so there's going to be a lot of undead. It's going to be
Okay.
more. Hmm. Well, the first adventure is really, it begins as a mystery. Most of it is a mystery. Yeah, there's still a lot of action, but it's quite a lot of it's a mystery looking for clues. The second one is a rescue mission. That's how it begins.
Right.
Um, Although there's more to it. And then the next book, hopefully, that we'll do, we're looking at maybe kickstarting in February. This new one with an undead theme is a different kind of dynamic, and at a very different location. So each adventure, we're going to try to change things up.
Well, that's cool because there's something that I wanted to show people. Uh, that was on the Discord the other yesterday, the day before, and it's this thing here where you had the phrases
Yeah.
that were being asked about. And I'm actually very happy that they've been kept in the dark for too long. Is has been the top selection because I think I voted for two of them. The surface world is about to meet the underworld, and they've been kept in the dark for too long. And the dark too long one, I'm kind of pleased about because uh, for some reason it reminds me of Jaws. I don't
Mm,
know why. You know, if you thought it was safe to get in the water, Jaws
yeah.
2 specifically,
Yeah.
and that phrase, just for some reason when I read it, I'm like, yeah, that's Jaws 2. It's safe to go into the water. No,
Yeah.
it's not. But this one, I don't know. It just sings to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in agreement with you. It's probably my favorite. Yeah. So we put a bunch of the taglines, put them on our Discord, and had people vote for their favorites. And we'll put the Discord invite link below as well if you want to join our server. There's a good group on there.
You know, there's like 7,000 people now.
Maybe 70 or 80 or something.
Actually, yeah, there are 50, 60, yep, 60, just about 70,
Okay.
just shy of it. That's kind of awesome. It's one of those things. Actually, you know what? To be honest, there's kind of a cool thing about. I always say the word "cool." I need to come up with a new writer, but the idea that there's a Kickstarter running and that you can actually talk to people on the Discord. To me, that's kind of a magic sauce where if you have any last minute suggestions for the Kickstarter or any books of the future, you could talk directly to people on the Discord, and hopefully Andrew will look at them and go, "That's a great idea," or whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it happens all the time. And yeah, I agree with you. It's really fun to be able to talk to the creatives. And I had one person who looked at that cover you have up there of the mushrooms in the flames and said, "Hey, if you're giving us cooked mushrooms, can you please include some orc so we can have bacon with the meal?" So,
Okay, that's awesome.
yeah, we'll have to do that.
All right, so today we're talking about this book.
Yeah, well, we're talking about the underworld in general, and it does, we did do a book, which I'll mention in a moment. So the archetypal underworld is this common archetype that really it's used to symbolize a lot of different things. So it can symbolize a symbolic death, a rebirth, or a journey like through your soul or through your mind. Um, and this has been taken into D&D and fantasy stories. So it becomes a mythical underworld. Um, in some stories, it is a hell-like place or the netherworld. And pretty much every culture has stories about the underworld. Um,
Right.
there's a guardian often. There's people who get lost there, heroes going on adventures into the underworld. So it's a very common myth, a very common archetype. In Dungeons and Dragons, it became part of the game right away because the underworld in D&D is not considered to be too deep. I didn't realize this. I always thought, oh, it's sort of like 5, 10 miles, 20 miles or more below the surface. No, it's considered to be just beneath the surface, maybe not even a mile. So,
It's kind of
you have
terrifying.
a game where dungeons and caverns are a big part of the game. Then the caverns get deeper, not that deep. All of a sudden, you've entered the underworld. So early on in the game, the underworld became part of the stories. Um, and in newer editions, they've renamed it the Underdark.
Yes, that's true because I was actually confused about that. I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. When did Monsters of the Underworld come out?
I believe 2017.
Okay, so it's probably after that where I did actually kind of wonder if there was a difference. Never looking it up, but not finding much at the time anyway. But
Yeah,
that's actually really good sort of information because it's you could in theory have both. I guess that you could build them differently somehow, but anyway, I'm just
sure.
kind of to me that's a gem.
Yeah, sure. You could do that. You could have like different underworld regions, right? Or different underworlds. It's possible. Um, the Underdark in general, people see it as this massive system of caves and tunnels below the surface. And in some ways, in the new editions, it doesn't have as much definition as it did in the beginning.
Right.
Um, and it it really, like I said, it's featured in our book now. But our Monsters of the Underworld book, which is not just a monster collection, this is really a campaign book as well. And it was inspired by a series of modules of adventures by Gary Gygax um,
Right.
in D&D and AD&D. There's this series called D1 to 3. So the first book is D1 2, Descent into the Depths of the Earth. And then the conclusion of this part is the Vault of the Drow, and it's module D3. So that's really our inspiration for it. We feature creatures from our underworld in these first two adventure books we were talking about. And the place where we keep our underworld is, as I said, a mile or so, some distance below the surface world. And in the world of Mir, it's underneath the world of Mir, underneath the continents and the ocean.
Right.
So one of the cool things about the underworld, like Phaland in some ways, is that it has a lot of challenges. You don't normally take low-level characters there because to live in that kind of difficult, challenging environment, you're going to have to be quite tough. And so usually it's not a good idea to take low-level creatures, low-level PCs into the underworld or into Phaland.
No.
So some of the challenges are the darkness, and now people complain in sometimes 5e because it seems like all the creatures have dark vision. That doesn't mean that they can see everything. and there's lots of things out of their range that they can't see if the whole, most of the underworld is dark. So,
Yeah.
you can have spells and ammunition like projectiles coming through the dark that they'll never see. They can only see a range and they don't see in color. And yes, quite a few of the races have it, but not all of them. Now, if you do use light, like magical light or torches to see in the dark or light a fire, that's going to show everything where you are. So that brings its own challenges as well. Um, Magic can work differently in this world. In the 5e version of it, um, it sometimes does. There's very difficult terrain, as I said. There's strange languages that probably the party won't speak, like Undercommon. Going back to the surface world, if you're lost in the underworld, or even if you've come down there, getting back can be a real task to try to get back.
Oh God,
Um,
yeah.
Finding food and water that's edible and it's not going to kill you, that can be a challenge. Yeah, it's a challenging environment, which I think is fun. I would say though, you don't want to do it like a campaign that goes on for months and months and months there, because I think like Ravenloft and Bavaria, after a while, or Barovia, after a while, it gets kind of it gets sort of weighs on the party. If you're sort of in this dark land, I think weeks and weeks is cool. Months and months might be overdoing it a bit.
Well, yeah, I remember we did an adventure where we were in the Underdark for quite some time, probably at least 5 sessions or so,
Mhm.
and it was brutal because you are encountering different environments, and uh, if you're lucky, you will be able to find basically that adventure where we all basically ran away from the end. We saw, like, I think it was a mind flare, and we weren't that high level, so we just booked it out of there. But imagine if that particular adventure had actually had some time of or like several sessions of playtime, and then encountering that, and you're already deep into the story. And sometimes I think that the Underdark is basically one of those places where you don't really know the danger. Because players could get all hopped up, like, yeah, let's get down there and save the princess, blah blah blah, whatever the adventure is. But yeah, the Underdark Underworld is not. It's not a friendly place in any way, shape, or form. It's where stuff festers and grows, and I remember one of the adventures we had. We were there, and somehow we encountered something that did not look like the Underdark. Like, it was a very sort of pleasant kind of thing. Unbeknownst to us, we were under a spell or something. I forgot exactly why, but uh, it's a place that's really kind of a hyped up adventure. Let's all get down there. Where really, do you want to be sad and have 14 characters at the ready to replace the ones that die? Yeah, I don't know. Just something you said there just made me think about how not awesome this place is. You know,
Well, like I
like
said, it's
it seems
challenging.
obvious.
Yeah, it's challenging, and you're right. I think once your party reached the Drow capital city, you got inside, you were staying at an inn, and then you started looking around, and there's thousands of evil Drow, dark elves. There's giant spiders and demons walking down the street. There's mind flayers hanging out in the tavern. You decided to head back to the surface world. Um, So yeah, you have a lot. So the main races in the traditional and Cawood publishing version, the most powerful are the Drow, the Dark Elves.
Yeah.
They have a complex society. They used to be a chaotic evil. Now they've been neutral evil. I think chaotic evil is probably better. Really fascinating race. They worship this demon spider goddess, super powerful creature, and yeah, and they're the most powerful race. They have patrols everywhere. They have wilderness manners. They've got guard towers all over the place. They take slaves. They have magic users, priestesses. It's actually a matriarchy, the matriarchal society, where the women are the ones who are in charge and rule. And I think it's very interesting. We have a lot of different drow types in our book, and there's a lot in the core books, and the extensions of the core books. Then we also put dwarves in there because I think that makes sense that the dwarves probably would. That's one of the places they might be inhabiting. You
Yeah.
just think of Skyrim with all their underground temples and cities. Well, our world of Mir, we do something similar in part of the world. Um, Orcs, we also like to use orcs and goblins in the underworld. That's really inspired by Tolkien. You think of the Lord of the Ring movies and The Hobbit. Um, yeah, I love the idea of all these caves filled with thousands of, this is one of their homes,
Yeah.
uh, away from the sun, right? It kind of makes sense. Unlike that new TV show, doesn't know what it's doing. Um, and then the Duergar, these evil gray dwarves. There's the good,
I
the
have my own dwarves apparently.
yeah, the good deep gnomes are interesting, also known as the Swerve Neblin. Um, so there are some good creatures down there. I make most of our dwarves lawful good. Swerve Neblin, I believe, are neutral good. So there's a lot of different creatures as far as that goes, like humanoid types. But
Right.
then you have the monsters, um, as well. So the mushroom people, traditionally, they've sort of been these boring myconids, especially in 5e. They don't really have a lot of, they can't really do very much. They have these spores that can calm you down and put you to sleep. Ooh, that's exciting. So what we did is we really focused on that in this book and in our adventure books, and we give you lots of different, more challenging mushroom creatures, and I think that's a lot of fun. Some can spread spores that actually do something, um, and yeah, that whole theme of spreading spores and decomposing we find quite interesting. Then you have giants, can be down in the underworld. The most classic version are the Fomorians who live in the underworld, but you could have other giants. We put our queen of the giants down there, and
Right.
of course there's dragons. You can still have dragons down here. Mind flayers, very classic D&D monster. Beholders, perfect place for beholders is the underworld. These fish people called Kuatoa. Um, and we are a big fan of that type of creature. So our adventure, our new one, has fish people, very different than Kuatoa, but we do like that sort of idea.
Yeah.
Then there's Darrow, there's oozes, there's minotaurs, the Roper, a very classic D&D creature, the Piercer, um, all different kinds of giant lizards and elementals. You could go on and on. There's so many cool underworld creatures. Now the locations, what is down there? Well, we have a Drow capital city, which Gygax had in that original adventure series, and it's huge, massive, massive city, the biggest city in the Underdark or the Underworld. Um, then we put dwarf cities down there, um, homes obviously for those other humanoids, Drow wilderness manors, ancient tombs could be connected to the underworld, a labyrinth, some kind of maze. That would be a really cool element. That's one of the reasons we think the Minotaur is a perfect creature to have there. And we actually have multiple Minotaur versions in this book. There's outposts for other humanoids. There's ruins. You could even have mines or abandoned mines that connect into the underworld. That can be how the
Nice.
party, maybe they accidentally get in there through a mine. Then you have the terrain. And this, like I said before, this makes it very challenging. And this is one of the things we include a bit in our first two adventures: fungi forests, caverns, crystal caves, webs. Like there's in the 5th edition book called Out of the Abyss about the underworld or their
Yeah.
underdark.
Yeah.
They have one section where it's just massive webs a huge area which are covered by them from giant spiders, and they have to try to traverse these webs, and you had to fight on the webs themselves. Chasms, you've got underworld lakes and rivers, rope bridges. That's a fun thing to have in the underworld, like over this chasm.
Yeah.
That you can have entire valleys down there, tunnels, obviously. So there's a lot going on.
Well, I
Now,
always pictured the underworld as kind of hollow earth, that sort of idea where you're under the surface and it looks like the surface of the world, wherever the world is. In our case, the world of beer, and but it's so vast, like it's just this big open space. You can kind of see the ceiling. You can see like if you were outside, kind of idea. But of course, as you were pointing out, there's all these cramped areas that basically have been claimed, I would think, by different factions. Because if you're evil, are you really going to be friendly with other evil things? No, probably not. You look like a spider. Okay, you're cool. Oh wait, no, you're a vampire. No, we don't like you. Get out of here. So I could see these. Just anyway, just kind of
yeah, another example that comes to my mind too is Blackreach in Skyrim. That's a perfect
Oh
example
yeah,
of an underworld area. Um, some of the events that could happen. So again, I mentioned the spores being spread. These could have multiple effects. They could be poisonous. They could change the characters in some way. There's lots of things you can do. We actually have spore effects tables in our first two adventure books.
nice.
There could be areas where magic doesn't work at all, which would be quite challenging. Um, you could have caravans of the merchants who work down there. Maybe the merchants are dark elves, maybe they're dwarves. There's lots of variety. You could have deep gnomes. There's patrols from the drow and other creatures. There's the evil drow slavers grabbing people, the giants on the move, orcs and goblins raiding. There's poisonous gas that could come out of different areas. Um, there's steam vents that you could have, sinkholes, um, rockfall, lava pools. You could have adventurers lost down there, like other like NPCs. Um, you could have cave-ins or stalagmites and stalactites that are loose or fall. So there's really an endless amount of adventuring and creatures. And like Phaland, pretty much everything is like on the table because, like you said, it's a different version of the surface world. You know,
Yeah.
Phaland is this kind of magical, twisted, more intense version. Well, the underworld is a darker, more mysterious, dangerous, unpredictable world as well.
It's kind of it's like in any D&D kind of universe. Um, I find the ones that really embrace variety are going to be uh, the more successful ones, where you don't want everyone's been in a medieval world. We've all played the medieval world. That's really great. But I find that it's more entertaining and more interesting when you have elements of that being thrown up against, uh, like in D&D, and you have the some modules that have dinosaurs. There's some that have spacecraft, because why would you not have this is another planet in the universe. What if an alien race did crash on a D&D world? So whether you now, I know that you are anti guns and those kinds of things, but I'm just saying that you have these opportunities to do these things. However, the underworld is definitely ripe with the same sort of opportunities, but I don't know. To me, it's a lot more fun to create dark, kind of evil places because you know that the heroes are going to go through those places and are going to just smash through most of the things. Or I don't know. It's something that it excites me more, and I don't know why. Like we have castles and dragons and things on the surface, but in the dark, I don't know. There's something about that just makes me a little more. Just there's more to creative juices flowing, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, I know for me that series that Gygax did, D1 to 3, that's definitely my favorite series. And it's because it's so challenging. Um, there's not many good creatures down there. You could, like, in our world, we have some dwarves there. There's deep gnomes. There's very few. Um,
Mm.
we even created a group of knights who go into the underworld, who are specially trained and equipped to deal with all the dangers. But one of the reasons we did that was so that the players could encounter someone who's good, because it is so dangerous and so deadly. I mean, even if you get help from, like, these knights, we call them Illumini. Even if you get help from them, you might still not make it. Um, so I just like the challenge, and I liked, like you said, the different terrain and different rules. Like, again, magic, maybe it doesn't work properly. You have a hard time sometimes seeing things. You don't know what to eat, like what's what's edible, what's not edible. Um, it's so unpredictable.
Well, yeah, just what you said just reminded me that I should show off a few of these creatures here. But yeah, the Illumini, they have their. I mean, look how cool they are. I mean, come on, they're just kind of these you know great creatures that you've got in this particular book that you know they inhabit the underworld so nicely. But anyway, I'm just showing off now for of the work that you've done.
Well, there's a funny story about that book too, because that is one of the few good creatures. So those are human knights who have this special armor and, like I said, the special equipment to go deal with the dangers in the Underdark and fight evil. What I originally thought too was, hey, it'd be cool to have a type of angel that goes down there to fight evil. So the first creature in the book alphabetically was this angel. And then just before we finished it, I looked at the order of the creatures, because the first two books, we had the creatures A to Z, like most monster books. We changed that
Right.
after that. But because of the order, I thought that makes no sense to have an underworld book and then the very first creature is an angel. It's this good creature. Welcome to the underworld. So I changed it, and then and I told Travis, the artist, about that. So what ended up was the next one alphabetically was the animated statue, and
Oh,
then he
nice.
made this like totally gruesome scene with the animated statue. But it was a much better beginning than having an angel there. Um,
Oh, I agree. And I mean, and it's like happy accidents like that where you can go, okay, well, this doesn't kind of feel right for the book, but then you could turn that into something else, like the Illuminati, not the Illuminati, the Illumini. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, there's cool things like that, and I seem to recall there's a story about that gruesome statue image where I seem to remember now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to recall he drew it, and then you said basically grosser, more blood, or things of
No,
that nature.
no,
No, never.
no, no. It's funny because if anything, Travis pulls me away from the satire being too in your face when we have satire. Um,
Okay.
and I pull him away from being a bit more gory. So it would have been the other way around. It would have been Travis saying, "How about more blood?"
Can you
And me,
take out the brains, Travis? Take the brain and the skull pieces. Like, no.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm less of
That's
a
awesome.
fan of that. He's more from the comic world than I am. So I like
Right, of
some of
course.
that, but I don't want it to be yeah, I want to have sort of not too in your face, just like the satire. We want to be, you know, for the most part, we want to have a nice balance there.
Well, I mean, it actually just struck me that you and Travis have been working together since 2016. Is that right?
Yeah. 20, yeah.
Or
Actually,
2017?
um,
What was the first book that he worked on?
that's a good question. No, the first book he ever illustrated for us was he did one illustration in the Hirelings for Henchmen book. So that book probably came out. I'm wrong about the Underworld book. So the Hirelings and Henchmen was probably 2018, and then and then 2019 was probably Phaland. So 2020 was
Right.
probably the Underworld. So yeah, we've been working together, I think, since 2018. So yeah, almost, what is that? 7 years? Yeah.
Yeah, 2019 on this book. Yeah.
2019 on the
Wow.
Underworld?
On the Underworld book.
Okay,
That's
so
it's
then
on
it would have
the.
been 2017. So 8 years, and then 7 years. Like for 7 years, we've been working together quite a lot. Um,
Well, you've had almost a book a year, even throughout the pandemic, if I remember correctly.
More, because I think more. There was one year that a book. I think there was one year I think one of the pandemic years, the book only came out in January,
Right.
but it went to the Kickstarter backers that year. So we have published one every year, but public releases, there's one year where there was a break, but it's more than a
Right.
book a year since we started working with him, because there are 6 monster books, the World of Mir, an adventure book, because the World of Mir and the adventure book are about to come out for public release. And
Right.
then we had the comic book as well. He didn't do that one, but we did a comic book. And then there are the two softcover books we did before the monster series. So yeah, it's been a busy 9 years. It's 9 years for Cawood Publishing, and I think 7 years working with Travis, or yeah, 7 or 8 years. Yeah.
We're getting old, sir. We're getting old. But are there any creatures you want to point out in the Monsters of the Underworld book aside from
Sure.
the
If you just
Illumini?
want to
Like, is
go
there any?
through, if you want to go through a few, and we can talk about them, just
Sure, sure, sure.
a handful of them, sure.
Well,
You want to put
the
up,
one of my favorites here is what page are we on here? So it's close to the end of the book, and if I knew how to use a computer, that would be great.
we'll get an IT person on it.
Let's get an IT person on it. Now it's near the end of the book. It is the Vok. No, spiders, monsters. Yeah, here we go. Giant slug.
Right.
Now, the only reason I really love the giant slug is because of the art. I mean, come on. You look at this art. To me, this is like almost see-through kind of feel to this slug. And when I first saw this, when I first got the book, I thought, this is like the perfect creature. Like, you could use this in so many ways. And
Yeah.
I just was attracted to it. I just thought this has got to be one of the cooler things in the book. But so that's my favorite. What is your favorite? Now I know you created them all; they're all your babies.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you were to pick one of your babies to love more than the others that are in this book, what would it be?
Well, I do love the Giant Queen. If you go to G, the Giant Queen is pretty awesome. There's a lot of creatures I like.
Page 61.
But the Giant Queen is pretty special because I told Travis, okay, we're going to put a few giants here. So we have the Thunder Giant and the Lava Giant. And
Here we go.
yeah, and I
Oh,
said,
right.
Yeah, I said, you know that video "Love is a Battlefield" with Pat Benatar? Make the giant queen like Pat Benatar style. And Travis was like, "I got it. I got you." And
I
I
mean,
love it.
it's
I think it
great. I
looks
mean, I
great.
love this. Like,
It's
there's
like a
this
I just love it. It's like this punk giant. I think it's awesome.
the punk giant. Uh, every time I see this one, I always think of the Bowie one, which is in a different book, I think.
No,
But
every book has a Bowie monster.
is it really? Have I
Yeah.
forgotten the Bowie monster in here?
Go to D in this book, and we'll go to the David Bowie monster. So there's the thunder and lava, the gloom giant, cave giant. We have a few giants, a lot of mushroom people, tons of drow. But before
Lots
the
of drow.
drow, there's an infected drow.
That's actually I'd forgotten about that one. That is so
Yeah.
cool looking.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons we made this new adventure about spreading the infections. We wanted to keep going with that theme. So tons of dwarves, an infected dwarf.
Another infected dwarf.
Yeah, the dwarf king. It's good to be the king.
It's good to be the king.
And
Oh, I like that. Oh, that's cool.
yeah, that's an amazing golem that the dwarves built. Duergar, here you got Draugr inspired by Skyrim, although they're from folklore from a long time ago. I guess there are a lot of D monsters, few dragons,
I
and here we
oh
go.
look at
Nope,
that.
there we go. What's that called? Shane? No, not him. The next one.
Oh, the diamond. Oh, the diamond dog. Okay, now.
The diamond dog.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we made an actual diamond dog.
Oh, that is oh wow.
Yeah,
That is so that's oh Draugr's best friend. Or Duragar's best friend.
that's right.
Oh yeah, God, this is oh wow, this is going back now because I can't believe how long I've actually had this book, and because I know that I've gone through it at least two or three times over the last few years, but
Yeah.
that is so
Yeah. So
cool.
you
I
would have
love
had
it.
it for 6 years. Yeah.
It's up on the shelf with all the other ones,
Yeah. And this is a
and more
favorite.
to be added.
Phaland is still the most popular for our readers, but this is a big favorite too. The city book and this one are probably next in line in terms of the favorites of the readers. Yeah, the Underworld. There's a lot of people who like this book. I know a lot of kids who like this book. Actually, I've heard from a lot of parents. I thought they would like
Really?
the Phaland book, and they do. But there's also a lot of kids who like this one. Yeah.
Now that is very very cool. Speaking of the kids liking the book, now I know that you've got a couple of these books in the library in North Vancouver. Um, which ones are they?
So the first book that was accepted was Monsters of the City, and then last year Monsters of Phaland was accepted, and this year it's just about to go onto their shelves. Actually, it's Monsters of the Wilderness this year, and there's
Nice.
actually a gathering this week actually where they have all the authors and they have a night where they show all the books and they it's a whole evening, which is pretty fun. I went to the
Nice.
one last year. um, the only reason I didn't go to the first one was because it was still the pandemic,
Oh, of
but
course.
yeah, that's this Friday. So it's the West Van, North Van City, and the North Van District Libraries. And yeah, we're really happy that 3 years in a row we've had a book accepted. I actually emailed them the first time and said that's very open-minded of you to include this, because most of the books are like the rare blue turtle bird from Deep Cove, or it's a book called Hemi the hippo goes to Paris, and then there's our books. So
Monsters of the what?
yeah, so I wrote them that, just saying they're very open-minded, because I we submit the book each year, and the person responded, one of the librarians, and said, "You'd be surprised how many librarians play D&D," and they were super happy to have
Nice.
me submit the books. And yeah, they've all been accepted. And they actually now have programs where they give out starter sets and other supplements from the library. So yeah, they're big fans and promoters of D&D.
That is actually so. Honestly, it's having something in a library just makes you feel, at least for me, because I've had a couple of books in the library over the years, and it just kind of feels like it legitimizes you, like, because there are some times where it's like you've written a bunch of books and you're like, I should write another one, and I've got these other books, and I'm not a real author, and then the library calls. They're like, yeah, by the way, we were curious if you'd come by and sign a few of the copies we have. Like, I will be there in 10 minutes, and yeah, it just kind of makes you feel good somehow, and then of course, a little while later, you're like, I hope somebody actually reads it because I really want I really want somebody to get something out of it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's a bonus, like getting books in the library, or we have some stores. Um, there's one store in Florida and one store in England that have our books. So yeah, that is a bonus for sure. Yeah.
rock and roll. The Diamond Dog will, I think, it's in competition with my favorite monster now.
Yeah,
Gotta
if people are
say.
interested, you could search through every book. There's at least one in the Monsters of the Dungeon book. There's a few books, more recent books that have more than one Bowie monster. The Phalanx, the Phalan 2 book has two. Yeah, it has two. And the dungeon book, maybe the dungeon book only has one. I can only think of one right now. But every book has at least one David Bowie monster and one South African monster.
Yeah, I remember you pointing those out, and that was actually very, very cool. Like having like this folklore creature that I had never heard of, never
Right.
imagined, and you're like, oh yeah, totally. There's tons from where I grew up.
Yeah. Yeah, we've taken some from mythology in South Africa and others from like the current culture itself. So, yeah, I've never had any South Africans notice that. I know there are South Africans playing D&D, but maybe we need to reach out to them more and point it out, see if they can find the creatures. Maybe I need to
Well,
put more Canadian because really I have one really Canadian creature in Monsters of the Wilderness called the Arborean. It's a Titan. And to me, it looks like the most Canadian monster ever because it's like a giant moose elk monster. And Travis has put it in a forest with a mountain backdrop. And even the colors looks like Canada to me. So maybe I need to make more Canadian monsters.
the Mountie hat is also a giveaway. You know,
The infected beaver. Oh no, that's a whole other thing. The double
that's
double
absolutely
monster.
brilliant.
The double double monster. What else?
I I had a double double yesterday, and you know what? I did not know that there was a thing called the triple triple.
Oh, well, there you go.
Apparently, it's
You
fairly
have
new.
the poutine. Um, yeah, the poutine something. What other Canadian things do we have? The
The poutine slime. It's oh, gross. A lot of gravy
the Mountie
consistency.
Knight. Um,
The Maginite, uh, the canoe.
right.
It's
Yeah.
like it's a doppelganger of some kind to
The
trap you in.
Sasquatch. There's one.
Oh, Sasquatch, of course. You
Um,
have to.
the donut golem. How about the donut golem?
There would be like the Tim Bit. I guess actually would work for a name. The
Yeah,
Tim Pit, maybe I
the
don't know.
Tim Burton. Um,
Oh,
we we could have the Aarakocra, the Antigonish Aarakocra,
Sure, that'd work too.
the Moose Jaw. There's a good name.
The Moose Jaw. What was that film that Kevin Smith did called Tusk? Like a walrus creature from like Winnipeg. That kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Recently, yeah. And a bunch of their daughters are in that movie. That's right.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
But
We could have
there's all these
Canadian bacon monster.
Oh, of course. You have to. John Candy must be represented, of course. Dan Aykroyd,
Yes,
we'll have could be characters.
Strange Brew, right?
Yeah. Oh, the hockey team, the crazy hockey team, mind control hockey team.
You have a hockey golem. A hockey golem.
Hockey golem.
We should just make like a spoof Canadian Monsters of Canada book.
Love it. I think.
All right, that's a new project.
Travis.
New project. New Kickstarter.
A new Kickstarter. Get him a toque.
That's right.
Any final words about the Underworld or the Underdark?
Well, the final words would be that we bring you the Underworld to the surface world in these first two adventure books. So
Nice.
One is going on sale probably in January for the public. And the second one is funding right now, right below with that link. And we're about 2/3. Yeah, we're just over 2/3 of the way, actually, with about 3 weeks to go. So check it out.
To go.
Yeah.
Highly recommend The Fall of Rivenhelm. And of course, supporting small publishers is always a good thing to do. It's a labor of love. And of course, you have multiple artists working together on this book. And because it's not just all about Andrew. But yeah, it's a great project to do and a great project to get involved with by supporting. And definitely, as we always say, everything link-wise will be down below. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Andrew. And I certainly hope you are watching, listening, subscribing, doing all the clicking of the things. And we'll see you all next time where hopefully you will have a better game because at the end of the day, as we always say around here, this is just a game. And I'm surprised we didn't talk about those links you sent me. But we'll talk about those next week.
Later.
Bye, everybody.